So here are the three big stories that you need to know about today. There was another assassination attempt. This one was a former Ukrainian pro-Russian figure who is in the parliament. He was a former Ukrainian lawmaker. His name is Oleg Tarasov, pro-Russian figure whom sources in Moscow had enlisted to lead a puppet administration if the war had gone a different way early on. The attack took place in Yalta in Crimea. That's where he lives. Around midnight, he was shot twice on the grounds of his home. The SBU source said, quote, he had been for a long time on the list of traitors who have to answer for their crimes. He was not just a fan of the Russian world, but rather a person who came along with Russian tanks in order to capture Kyiv. And again, he would have been perhaps installed as a puppet governor for Russia had the effort been successful early on. The interesting thing is, where is Yalta? Yalta's down here. That's where this attempt took place. So nobody's safe anywhere in Crimea. Okay, I mean, if you're Russian, nobody is safe. You've got to be careful. Again, we talked about Gerasimov almost assassinated just yesterday. Okay, Orban opposed the EU's $50 billion support plan for Ukraine while Fico raises corruption concerns. So these two are Putin's plan to keep Europe from funding Ukraine. That's what's going on here. And it's really actually an ingenious plan on Putin's part. All you have to do is find one or two that are going to support you and oppose the EU. Now remember that the way that the EU is set up, they have to have unanimity in these big kind of packages. And so all these countries have to agree. If one of these countries says no, then it freezes things. Now the way around that is simply to make sure that each country pulls their weight as if it was the EU, but it would be a much more complicated process. Frankly, if I was Putin, I would just make all kinds of progress with something tiny like Malta, just to make sure that the smallest little piece of the puzzle just upsets the apple cart. And not necessarily Malta, but the one that's closest to me, which was Hungary for some time, and now is Slovakia. Last story is Ukraine war. Russia is executing its own retreating soldiers. Well, let's go down here first. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said in a briefing on Thursday, the Russian military appears to be using what it would call human wave tactics, just throwing masses of poorly trained soldiers into the fight. But that's not what we're talking about. That is slaughtering them, but that's not what we're talking about. According to the U.S., some of the casualties suffered by Russia near Avdiivka were on the orders of their own leaders being assassinated, like really just being executed. So it's bad. Okay, that's it. Those are the three big stories that you need to be aware of. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.